So will you welcome Mitchell to the stage together?
It's funny because oftentimes you guys see me up here in kind of that MC prayer announcement portion that Coy does in the transition to the message. And Coy has told us before that we often steal his introduction to his message. And he doesn't want to repeat it, so then he has to figure out what to say to kind of kick off and introduce, and Coy did that to me today. And so now I'm trying to figure out what to say to be able to transition to the message, but I'll share by talking a little bit about what we did yesterday. So he did mention I am the community liaison pastor here, so I do a lot of work in the community and trying to get our church involved in the community and businesses involved on school campuses. And one of the things that we did yesterday was at Oscar J. Pope Elementary School, we got to do a little bit of campus beautification. And it's funny because we've done this for like 3 or 4 years, and most of the plants we plant end up dying. And so we have to come back the next year to plant new plants because we haven't been able to keep the plants alive. But this year is different. We're going to keep the plants alive this year and have a good time. And we also did some, they have these horseshoes because they're the stallions around campus to help the elementary kids know the path to be able to walk. And so we were like, let's refresh those horseshoes because they're pretty faded. And so we made a template and we got spray paint and we went to go do it. And the first one that we did right there in front of the doorway, we messed up. And so we pivoted to try and correct it, and we corrected it, and we went all the way down to the far end, away from the front of the building, to try and make sure that it worked, and it worked. So we were confident. We came back to the front, and the next one that I did out front, my template flipped over, and it was covered with spray paint. And so then there's just this blob of black paint right next to one of the other ones that we messed up. And we just shook it off and just said, we're just letting the kids know it's okay to be imperfect sometimes. Everything doesn't have to go the way that we planned it, and we can keep moving forward. And so that's what we're going to do today. And so as Coy shared, this will be a different message than what you typically hear from me, even typically hear from Coy, because today what I'm going to get to do is to cast a vision for the work that I've been doing for the last few years. And it kind of helps kick off the study that Coy mentioned that we're going to dive into next year. And so Somos has been for Lakeland for a long, long, long time. And I was invited in as the community liaison pastor, which means that I get to develop, communicate, and then execute what our vision and our mission is to be a church for Lakeland. And within that, we believe that the foundation of thriving communities is thriving businesses and thriving schools. And so to be a church that exists for Lakeland means to be for local businesses and local schools. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time, is connecting with businesses, connecting with leaders, being involved in conversations that are happening, and showing up on school campuses to bring a presence and to really have an ear in one of the most critical parts of our community to be able to help solve some of the problems that are there and be a voice for the schools that we are a part of. And so a couple things that I have learned about Lakeland is that Lakeland is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. We are one of the top rated best places to live in the state of Florida. We outrank some of the beaches, which is crazy. And we are a top 100 city in America based on things like livability, lovability, and prosperity. And so when we look at those statistics, it says that Lakeland is a successful and a thriving community, which is the reason that so many people keep moving to Lakeland, and our traffic continues to get worse and worse and worse. It used to take me 10 minutes to get from my house to my parents' house, and now it takes me about 20 minutes to get from my house to my parents' house. Whenever I leave after picking Shep up in the afternoon sometimes, it takes me like 30 minutes to fight traffic just to get back to my house. It's crazy. But what I think this reveals to us about human nature is that there's a part of us that loves to attach ourselves to successful things. It's the reason that we bandwagon sports teams that are doing so well. It's the reason that a lot of you guys became Kansas City Chiefs fans along with me a couple years ago. But we've lived long enough to see ourselves become the villains now. Most of you guys hate us, and you've probably jumped onto the bandwagon of the Detroit Lions or maybe even the Philadelphia Eagles. right? But we love to attach ourselves to successful things because it makes us feel like we are doing well. We are a part of something that is doing well, and that's not a bad thing, right? We all want to be a part of successful and thriving communities. We want to be a part of places. We want to live in places that have good schools, that have good businesses, has good food, good culture, good jobs, good opportunities, good homes, good communities, right? And that's not bad. But the problem that I see within that is that we don't realize the role that we play in both creating and sustaining that kind of thriving and successful community. It's my belief that as a church, as people, we're not meant to be parasites that consume our communities, but we're meant to be active participants in creating thriving ones. And as followers of Jesus, we're meant to join the work that God is doing by inviting people to know the goodness of God in relationship to Him, in relationship to others, and in relationship to the world around us. And this problem that I'm talking about became so clear to me in a moment when I was sitting with the Lakeland Chamber of Commerce, having conversations about the work that they are doing in our community to improve our communities. We're at an annual members meeting. And the topic for this meeting was access to early childhood education. And they've talked about the work that as a community they're doing to help businesses and to help parents and families find access to early childhood education because it's a core foundation to solving some of the problems that we have in our community. And so at this meeting, at the end of it, they do Q&A, and there was a business leader that was in the room who asked this question along these lines. And I'm summarizing, I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said, "This is great, but what are you doing to solve the problem that I have of my employees who are a part of this lazy, entitled, and selfish generation who just don't want to work?" Right, and there may be some truth in that statement. But what stands out to me, what glares to me at that statement is that it is a snapshot of someone who would rather consume and reap the benefits of a community rather than get involved to make a difference and to create lasting change. Because that's what we're talking about. In that meeting, we're talking about how are we creating long-term change by investing in the future, and he's just focused on his problem that he has, and how are you going to solve it for me so that I can continue to make more money, so that I can be more successful. And it breaks my heart because what you see is that people are viewed as a commodity that gets me what I want, rather than people who are meant to know the goodness of God and have value that they are meant to bring to the communities that they are a part of, that we all are a part of. And it reminds me of a moment that Jesus has in Matthew chapter 9. In verses 35 through 38, it says this. It says that Jesus went through all of the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. And when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless. They were like sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." It's a small moment that we have, but we see Jesus looking at crowds of people. Rather than happy at the following that he has, he's heartbroken, filled with compassion and anger because the people are harassed and they are helpless. They are overlooked and nobody is there to take care of them. This passage, I think, is often preached in a church setting that there are so many sinful and unsaved people that are out there and we need more Christians to go harvest them into the kingdom. And that is not a message that you're going to hear from me today, because that's a message that still views people as a commodity that's meant to grow my church and my impact so that I can feel successful. And it causes a lot more harm than it does good. But there's a perspective in here that the harvest is not people. The harvest is the blessings of God. And the invitation is to gather the blessings of God and to share them with those that are in need. Marty Solomon is somebody that I listen to talk about theology, and he talks about scripture. And when he talks about this passage, he asks this question. He says, I wonder if Jesus' point is that we have so much and nobody is taking care of anybody. And so God is here to finally take care of the people that are being overlooked. You see, as successful as our community appears to be on the outside, as many cool conversations that I get to be a part of and to hear the success of Lakeland, I also get to be a part of a lot of conversations with businesses and with employees that are struggling and are hurting. I set foot on school campuses and I watch what happens, and I have conversations with people who, even in the midst of chaos, just say, hey, living the dream. When we as a staff gather and we talk about the conversations we have with students and with teachers and with administration and with families and with people, our hearts often break because there is so much hurt and there are so many people who are being overlooked that nobody is caring for. And that's the same thing that breaks Jesus' heart in this passage. And the invitation that we have then is to join God in the work that he's already doing by following the example of Jesus. And we see it right here in this passage in verse 35. It's really simple and we may overlook it, but the outline and focus of Jesus' ministry is that he went through towns and villages and taught in their synagogues. He proclaimed the good news of the kingdom, and he healed every disease and every sickness. And it's this core part of Jesus' ministry that we as a church feel burdened for, and our mission to be for Lakeland has become outlined by. To go where people are, to bring them good news, and to care for their needs. And it's doing that we've gotten to see a lot of really cool things. We've gotten to step into a lot of opportunities, but we've also faced so many other challenges and so many obstacles. And so I just want to share with you guys a few things about how our ministry, how For Lakeland has mirrored that of Jesus's, and ultimately how that has brought us to the biggest challenge that we have, the work that I have done for the last few years that we are getting ready to even launch into this school year. In the first few years of Somos, Coy and Brooklyn's oldest daughter started middle school. And it's crazy because she's graduated high school and in just a few weeks is about to go away for college. A lot can happen in 9 years. But their daughter was starting school at Southwest Middle School, and their desire as parents was to be involved in their child's education. Well, they also had a church that was here that could bring more presence and more volunteers. So Coy had the thought, why not kill two birds with one stone, and why not get our church involved on that same campus? Since I'm going to be there already, I'll just bring a lot of people alongside with me. And over time, then, our presence on school campuses is what has helped shape our identity, our mission of what it means to be for Lakeland. And so we started at Southwest Middle School, and then after a few years realized there's an elementary school right here in our backyard, Oscar J. Pope, that needs help. And so why don't we get involved there? Because they're right here across the street. And then the administration at Southwest Middle School got moved to Lakeland Highlands Middle School. And when the principal got moved, she said, I'm not going alone. You guys have to come with me. And so without really planning it, we moved to Lakeland Highlands Middle School. And so we're at 3 schools officially where we spend our time every week showing up. In last school year, our staff, just the 4 of us, not including all of the volunteer hours that you guys put in, helping us with the breakfasts and helping us with coaching sports and the clinics that we've run and even helping us with the concession stand, not counting any of those extra hours, our 4 staff put in 500 hours of work on school campuses just last school year. That's more time in a week than we spend here on our church campus. Part of that's because we don't have offices here. But the other part of it is because we know that the future of Lakeland is sitting in a classroom. Polk County is the 7th largest district in the state of Florida, the 30th largest in the country. There's over 120 schools and more than 117,000 students. In Lakeland alone, within our county, are 58 schools. So nearly half the schools in our entire county are right here in Lakeland, and 13 of them are middle schools. And you want to talk about an image of people that are harassed and helpless? Set foot on a middle school campus and watch the students, watch the teachers. All right, there is so much beauty and so much chaos happening at the exact same time. I say it's like a Jackson Pollock painting. You could literally take a snapshot and sell it for millions of dollars. The reason we focus on showing up to these middle school campuses is because some of the things that we've learned is that the middle school population is a completely overlooked demographic within our communities. They are the people that are helpless, that are harassed, that are hurting, and nobody seems to be going there because everybody's scared of middle schoolers. And so we go and we show up to these middle schools, and we try to do the same thing that Jesus does. Jesus went to places, and when he went to places, he brought good news. And what's interesting about the good news that Jesus brings is that it's outlined for us in Luke chapter 4, 18 and 19, whenever he's beginning his ministry. And what he says is, he says that the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The good news that Jesus brought was not that you have a king who has defeated your enemy and saved you and you're fine. Although that is good news that we have today. But the good news that Jesus brought when he showed up was to say that you have a king who walks with you. You have a king who sees you, a king who hears you and who says that you don't have to be held captive by the way that things used to be, a king who helps you see a better way and who helps you become a truer version of who you were created to be, who says that even though the world has written you off, I have not. I have chosen you, and you are mine, and you are loved, and you are favored, and you will reap the benefit of my presence and my nearness. Jesus says, I am here, and I am with you, and I see you, and you can find comfort and peace and rest in that. The good news that we bring to a school campus is to show up, and it's a presence that says, we believe in you, and you are not alone. There's a community of people that are here for you. When we volunteer, we show teachers and administrators that they are not alone. When we coach sports, we show students that growth and fun are possible, that you can do hard things and keep doing them, that you can overcome challenges and obstacles and create opportunities for yourself that other people have not had. When we write letters and we feed meals, we show teachers that they are seen and that they deserve to be rewarded for the hard work that they do showing up every single day. When we show up, we bring a presence and a kindness that says, you matter, and there is good that is waiting for you. Every single one of us on staff can tell you stories of heartache, of teachers who are struggling, students who are struggling, and we can tell you stories of breakthrough, of students who have overcome, students whose lives have flipped around, teachers who have seen miracles happen and growth happen. There's so much good that's waiting to be unlocked in the lives of our teachers and our students, and we as a staff get to show up every week to see it and to speak it into existence. Because we bring a presence that says you're not alone, and a presence that says we're here to help. Jesus didn't just show up to people and say, hey, I'm here, it's good, I see that you can't walk, it's fine, I'm out. He didn't show up to people that were hurting and bleeding, blind and deaf, and just say, hey, I'm with you, here's a hug, see ya. He met their needs. It says that he healed every disease and every sickness of the people that were brought to him, of the people that came to him. And so when we've shown up on school campuses, we've asked the question, what do you need and how can we help? And at some point, someone said, this is what we need right now. And we said, we can do that. And we're here. And we've just kept doing it over and over and over and over again. The things that we do are because people had a need, and we as a church were able to step in. despite being one of the largest districts in Polk County. Polk County is one of the lowest funded districts. We are the 7th largest out of 67 districts. And our funding rank is 61st out of 67. That is an incredible disparity that we have in our county. In this past week, we got an email from Superintendent Hyde that said that state funding has been cut by $67 million. And that threatens 125 staff positions. The things we do feel small, but they go a really long way. And this year, they will go even further. We provided breakfast for teachers at Southwest Middle School on Friday as I set foot back on campus. And as I set up for that, I was having conversations with one of the assistant principals, and she just reiterated to me, thank you so much for all that you guys do. She goes, we don't say it enough, but you guys do so much for us. Thank you. There's teachers that come through the line that are surprised. It's like, wow, nobody's ever done this for us before. Thank you so much. They feel so loved by those small acts. But in the two and a half years that I've been on school campuses having conversations, it still felt like something was missing. It still felt like there were greater needs that we had. And as we've shown up and built relationships with administration, if they continued to trust us, they've continued to share some of the greater needs that they have. And one of the greatest needs that we have in our schools is increased academic performance, because that's ultimately what they are measured by. What is the grade of your school? How well do your students test? And it changes every year. One of the schools we've partnered with was a D school, then a C school, then an A school, and now a C school. One of the other schools we've partnered with has been a C school and a B school. And they struggle, and there's a pressure that's on them to perform. And in our conversations with them, as we've done research, what we've learned is that the two greatest obstacles to increased academic performance is attendance and discipline. And Coy sent me an article not too long ago that the rise of incident reports for discipline in our schools is rising. What that means is that when students act out, they get taken out of class. When they're taken out of class, then they miss the opportunity to learn. And when they miss the opportunity to learn and they have to show up to a test that they don't know the information on, they test poorly. And so we've been having these conversations with administration, doing research, trying to learn. And while at the same time, you've heard us talk about it as a church, that we've realized the impacts that trauma has on the brain and on relationships and the way that it shapes our styles of relating. We've also learned about things called adverse childhood experiences, which are traumatic events that happen in the ages of 0 to 17, and the way that then that creates complex trauma and compounding trauma through generations over and over and over again, and how that leads to things like poor mental health and addiction, and continuing to pass that baton on down generation after generation after generation. And that's one of the things that we see in our schools. So you see here in Polk County, where in Polk County, 25% of our residents have at least 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. We've learned that our middle school students, 1 in 5 of them consider self-harm, and 1 in 11 of our middle school students will seriously attempt to take their life and end it. There is a deep need in our school campuses for our students and our teachers and these opportunities. And as we've learned this, it's come to one response by us as a staff and ultimately us as a church. And that is a creation of what we call For Lakeland. And you guys are like, Mitchell, you've been talking about For Lakeland all morning. We've talked about For Lakeland for 9 years. What do you mean when you say For Lakeland? Well, in January of 2023, as we started learning about these needs, we realized that there are limitations that we have as a church to do some of the things that we hope to do and to meet some of these needs. And so we started having conversations. What might it look like if we started a separate nonprofit called For Lakeland that can better serve the needs of our communities, more specifically our schools and the teachers and the students that are there that struggle in their mental health and their mental wellness and their well-being? And so in March of 2024, we drafted our Articles of Incorporation, formally becoming a business here in the state of Florida. And in January of 2025, we submitted our nonprofit application, and we are eagerly awaiting the approval of that status. But while we wait, that doesn't stop us from doing the work that we hope to do. Because for us, For Lakeland is now more than just a tagline. It is more than just the heartbeat of who we are as a church, but it is a living, breathing organization. One that believes that every person, every student, every teacher, every family deserves the opportunity to reach their fullest potential in learning and leading. And so we are committed to creating safe spaces and providing care for students and teachers in a way that supports the way our brains are designed to work. That through the things that we have always done, through coaching, through mentoring, and through educating, we will help teachers and students unlock their potential to grow. And so this school year, we will pilot 2 new projects on our school campuses as a way of caring for our students and making space for their voices to be heard and to be valued. We are starting something that we call Circles with a small group of students at Southwest Middle School and at Lakeland Highlands Middle School. Circles are a mentorship program that we've developed inspired by restorative practices, which are shown to increase academic attendance, shown to boost school culture, to decrease punitive discipline, and to increase attendance. What we've learned is the reason students act out is not because they're bad students. It's because they're hurting, and they're saying, I need help. Something is not right in my life, and I don't know what to do with it. Students that are harassed and helpless need a safe space to process, to learn, to think, and they need to be seen by adults who can offer care and attunement and support to them. As a way of caring for our teachers, we're launching Lunch and Learns to care for their mental health, where we will sit down with teachers and feed them a meal and start the conversations. What does it look like to fill your bucket and why your own mental health matters in your classroom? What it looks like to be able to weather the storms that come in your life and come in your classroom by building a resilient mindset. What does it look like to be able to hit the reset button when you feel overwhelmed and life feels really loud? Because what we've learned is that one of the greatest points of tension on a school campus is the classroom. That even if one student is struggling and suffering, it can be dysregulating to a teacher, which disrupts an entire classroom. One student who's hurting can impact a teacher in a way that affects 20 or 30 other students. And the solution that has always been there is to just get them out of class. But that doesn't solve the core issue that's there. And it's a core issue that we as a church, we as a staff feel burdened for. And so I asked you to dream with me for a moment. What might the future look like if we had mentally healthy teachers and mentally healthy students? What might the future look like for a teacher to be able to lead a classroom feeling confident, feeling capable, feeling passionate, feeling joyful, feeling purpose-driven, feeling called? What might it look like for a student to step into a classroom where they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel valued, they feel excited, and they feel ready to learn? What might it look like then on a school campus for students to feel inspired and to believe that anything is possible and the opportunities are limitless? For those students to graduate and to enter into the workforce where they become employees and they become bosses who feel whole, who feel grateful, that are hardworking and are relationship-oriented. To start families that offer care and kindness to their spouses and to their children, that feel supported and have access to everything that they need to flourish. You see, it's my belief that the church is not meant to be a final destination for us, but a vessel to fulfill the mission of God that he is doing in the communities that we are a part of. Which means that what we do when we gather here is very important. But it means nothing if we don't leave these walls and go to the places where people are hurting and people are struggling and people are suffering. We're not meant to hide from the world inside these walls, nor are we meant to wait for people to come here. But the mission of Jesus is very clear. Go where the people are. Bring them good news and meet them in their needs. To me, that is the heaven on earth that Jesus tells us to pray for, and it's the taste of heaven that we get to experience here and now. The thing about planting and harvesting is that you will harvest something. There will be a harvest in Lakeland. The question is, what kind of harvest will we have by the seeds that we sow? If we sow into our schools, I believe we will reap a harvest of a whole and healed community. One where we all know the goodness of God in relationship to one another and the world around us. Yet if we just sit back and do nothing, then weeds will run wild and we will continue to reap a harvest of a harassed and helpless community. The reason that I share all of this with you is for two reasons. One, this is your legacy. Whether you know it or not, whether you've been here from the start or you've just showed up, this is your legacy, Somos Church. For the last 9 years, you have sowed seeds into this dream and this vision that we have as a church, and we would not be here without you. We would not be here without those who have come before us. You have so faithfully heard the call and have so faithfully stepped in to harvest the blessings of God and to share them with those that are in need. That deserves so much celebration. But there is still so much more good to be shared. And so just as Jesus asked his disciples to pray and ask the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest fields, I'll ask you to pray. And to ask God how you might get involved in this next season of For Lakeland. Maybe for you that means just simply telling others what we're doing here. When you show up here and you invite others to hear about the work that we are doing and to be a part of a community that is trying to do something different in Lakeland and different for our schools, it continues to sow seeds into that vision. Maybe it means just showing up on a school campus. I can get you there. Maybe it means getting a part of the circles that we're going to start. Maybe it means coaching sports. Maybe it means coming to help feed meals. Maybe it means giving gift cards. Maybe it means writing letters. Maybe it means just helping out with the concession stand or helping to run clinics when they come. Maybe for some of you, it means even giving financially to help continue to invest in this future that we are committed to. Because it's a tall task. Just for the first few years, we envision it's going to cost $80,000 to $100,000 for us to continue to do this work and grow. And our heart is to set foot on every middle school campus, to create a place in a community where the schools that students are showing up to every day becomes a community center to them and to their families that serves and meets all of their needs. To be a place where the most formative years of a middle school student's life are the most hopeful, the most inspired, and the best years. Every single one of us, every single one of you knows what it is like to sit in a middle school classroom. How hard it is, how challenging it is, how chaotic it is. And every single one of you knows what's waiting on the other side when the right people show up. And the burden we feel as a church is to be those people. To continue showing up. To continue being for Lakeland. To continue being for teachers and for students so that they can unlock their potential to grow. And so I'm going to ask you to stand as I close us out in prayer. And I'll invite you to close your eyes, and what I want to ask you to do is just try to remember middle school. And try not to run out of the room terrified, maybe. Remember what middle school was like. Trying to make friends, losing friends, trying out sports and clubs and not making teams. What it was like to try and learn but not quite get it. Maybe what it was like for someone to be frustrated with you. Can you just get close for a moment to what it felt like for you in middle school? And think about what you might want to say to the younger version of yourself. Because you know it'll get better. God, there's a lot of students who sit in a classroom, who ride school buses, who sit in homes, God, that don't believe it's going to get better. God, there's people that are overlooked and neglected. God, there's such a huge need and there's seemingly nobody there to care for them. God, and your heart breaks by that. God, may our hearts break for that. God, I believe you've given us all a purpose and a passion to bring your goodness into this world and into these communities that we belong to. So God, would you inspire us right now? What might it look like, God, to join you on a school campus and to inspire the next generation? To show up and bring good news and to care for the needs of those that are hurting. Because God, you've blessed us so much. In your name I pray. Amen.